Welcome back, rheumatology fans. Jack here, the rheumatology physio, of course. So we're back with a return of the case study series. A couple of apologies from me. Firstly, apologies, has been a bit of a gap in between the last case study publication. Just had lots of other things to put out, really, and so it's just been pushed down the pile a little bit of things to record. So apologies for that, but we are back. I know that there are a number of people enjoying these particular series. Second part, apology, is apologies for the lack of visuals of my face this week. I have just been trying for about half an hour to make my webcam work. Can I make it work? No, I can't. So you just have to deal without my face for this week, for this recording. So apologies about that. So this case study, we're going to talk about management, and it arises with a set of specific circumstances, which the specific circumstances aren't likely to arise. But I think what it does is that it gives us a lot of ideas on how we might deal with some of these things. So we're going to talk about trying to rehabilitate a tendon problem, specifically an Achilles tendon, insertional Achilles tendon problem, in somebody with diagnosed psoriatic arthritis. And this comes off the back of, I recently presented at the Power Up to Play Lower Limb Symposium run by Octopus Medical. I'm hoping that I'll be able to get you a recording of that to my paid subscribers, but we'll have to wait to see on that. I don't know currently. If I can't, then I will record a new version of it for you. So I was presenting there, and I presented on rheumatological contributors in lower limb tendinopathies. I spoke for approximately 25 minutes, started off talking about how we might recognise a rheumatological condition presenting initially as a tendon problem. Then I went on to talk about management, which really is sort of the more interesting component from that specific talk, because I don't typically talk about that in a lot of depth. As you know, any of you that have interacted with any of my content before know I mostly do speak about differential diagnosis, but the audience at this event dictated that, and the organisers requested I speak a bit more about some ideas on management. So that's what today's case study is going to focus on. So this was a 22-year-old male rugby player. He played to a reasonable amateur level, but not sort of super high, but reasonable level. He was doing one match a week on weekends, one training session during the week, and then he was also doing 2 strength and conditioning sessions as well, sort of on his own in the gym. So one specific rugby training session, one rugby game, and then he also socially would play some various sports with his friends. Sometimes he'd play a bit of tennis, and sometimes a bit of football, whatever they were deciding to do. So he was a pretty active individual, but his work was mostly desk-based. So the only real activity he got was those sporting activities. So he'd been diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis, aged 18. He was very well managed on methotrexate, which was also managing his skin symptoms very well. His initial psoriatic arthritis symptoms were actually an arthritis of his knee and tennis elbow. Those were his initial psoriatic arthritis symptoms. But as I say, those settled very well on methotrexate, along with his skin symptoms settled very well with methotrexate. So he saw me a good while ago now, but I was working in private practice at the time. He saw me because he was getting Achilles tendon pain, and it was fairly consistent. It was happening most days, if not every day. He was still managing to do his rugby-related activities. So he was still training, still playing his matches. But the main issues he was having were first thing in the morning with this insertional Achilles tendon, so it was posterior heel pain, really. First thing in the mornings, and then the day after he had matches, so typically Sunday, so his match is typically Saturday, typically on Sunday, then it was worse in the morning for an extended period of time. So every other day it was worse in the morning for about an hour for easing to a tolerable level. And then on Sundays after his matches, it was lasting 3, 4, 5 hours where it was very uncomfortable and was giving him a limp. So he saw me for this. Now, that is quite an inflammatory pattern. So you can imagine when you're talking about more of a load-based tendon problem, you would anticipate that those symptoms being worse with activity, so either during the game or during his training sessions. But that wasn't particularly the case. He could feel it, but it certainly wasn't aggravated during those times, but certainly worse in the morning. So we really were thinking this was inflammatory in nature related to his arthritis. But because he was well managed on the methotrexate, the rheumatologists had advised that he just continues as is, and we try some physio on it. We don't want to go messing around with his medication, because the sort of next stage up would be really increasing the amount of medication he was having, and that's obviously quite a big jump potentially. So he saw me. It had been about 6 weeks at this point. And so what we did, we had a look, and there was not really a lot to find. He was tender to palpation over his insertional posterior heel, the insertion of the Achilles tendon. And it was tender when we really pushed him into dorsiflexion. He had reasonable power both sides comparative to the rest of his body, so objectively not a huge amount to find. Certainly no markers of inflammation. There's no redness, swelling, heat, anything like that. So of note, I saw him in the evening, and he said, he quote, "If you saw me first thing in the morning, we would probably get a lot more pain out of my heel." So that was all very interesting, and we talked a lot about different things that he was doing, sort of related to his general health, his activity. He was very keen to continue all of his activities, and to be honest, I had no reason to reduce down his activities, given that they weren't, other than that match, of course, particularly aggravating his heel symptoms. And then with it only being the next day, it wasn't extending into Monday, etc. I was quite